Hello everybody, and thank you for joining me on the first episode of Trophy Quest. And this journey started actually 15 years ago. And looking back through my trophy list on my PS4, I could see that the first game on here was Battlefield Bad Company from 2009. So that's 15 years I've been an avid gamer, if you like, in the world of PlayStation and collecting trophies. And I even remember at the beginning of this process, there weren't actually any trophies given on some of the earliest games, like Uncharted 1 with Nathan Drake. Uncharted 2 here was obviously the first one that you could get trophies for. And then there are other games as well, like Assassin's Creed, the original, which was a little bit samey and repetitive, but a landmark one nonetheless, which was later, which later I managed to get the platinum for on Assassin's Creed 2, and that was a real epic experience, being, Ezio Auditore da Firenze. And I recall the conversation actually back in the day where somebody said to me, have you been collecting any trophies? And I just remember thinking, trophies? I haven't really got time for those, to be honest. Normally I just play the game, the main story, and then that would be a lot, and then I've completed it, kind of. But then when I looked into it in a bit more detail, I realised, I'm missing a lot of really good stuff here. And for example, in Demon Souls, this game was revolutionary when it first came out. One of the hardest games I've ever played, which recaptured, the real old school gaming sort of sensation of, playing for hours on end with only 3 lives, and you had to complete the whole game, with only them 3 lives. And Demon Souls really brought us back to that time where you felt, tremendous loss and devastation for having lost, a good 1 or 2 hours of what you've been doing. And I completed that whole game, Demon Souls. I got all the way to the giant mantis at the end. And looking back, I still only completed 44% of the game. So there was another good 56% that I didn't really see the way that the games designers had intended. So that's where I really started getting a taste for, these trophies. And Fallout 3, if you remember it, was an absolutely epic game as well, and sensational with its VATS targeting system. That didn't have trophies, but the first one that did was Fallout New Vegas. And then, I guess, just as a tribute to Fallout 3, if anything, I completed New Vegas and got my platinum. And obviously there was a few more DLCs released that I didn't get the platinum for, but so be it. And then obviously Assassin's Creed was epic. I went back in time as well. I didn't have a PS2, so it was a real privilege to be able to catch up on some of these games on the PS3, obviously remastered for the PS3. And God of War 2 especially, and the soundtrack for that was absolutely epic, and I was really grateful to have caught up on that one, because I just remember not really having much time in the noughties, as it were, for gaming. And I just discovered gaming towards the end of the noughties again. And Wipeout as well is another common thread that's been there since PlayStation 1. I didn't get a platinum for that. I'm not sure why. I should have really pushed through. But and another one being Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. I got to 97%. Not sure why I fell short. But I made up for it with God of War 3. And then, Call of Duty World at War. I distinctly remember somebody approaching me, just a random person that I'd met online, as you do, and in the gaming fraternity, and they said to me, "Oh, I can't believe you got the platinum for Call of Duty World at War." And there was a particular, I do remember the last level of this being especially hard, and especially testing my patience, to the limit. And to be honest, I think that is really what this quest for, getting the platinum is about in many instances. It's about perseverance, and it's about, just not giving up and just keep trying and trying again. I know it's a cliche, but I mean, these skills are applicable to the real world in that, if you're patient and you persist, and you master your craft. And in this case, the craft was to try and get through a hailstorm of bullets at the end to take the Reichstag. Yeah, I managed to get there, and yeah, and it felt good, And I know it's only a small victory. You don't really get any credit for getting a platinum trophy, but it's nice to be recognised by other gamers for having overcome what was conceivably quite a challenge. Not every game I indulged in. A friend of mine liked the Saboteur, but I didn't really quite like that one. And then Modern Warfare 2 I thought was awesome. I played every little bit of that. Heavy Rain as well was quite revolutionary in its kind of cinematic. It's like basically a game, a film, an interactive film, if you like. Heavy Rain was. And then that led on to Dead Space, which was absolutely epic in terms of like playing against the Thing in outer space. And yeah, skipping on a few, not every game you can get a platinum for. I mean, Magic the Gathering, I love this game. Jewels of the Planeswalkers, it really gives me a taste of that, card game that is very popular. You see people walking around with absolute wadges of these cards, but luckily I was able to just play the digital version, and I loved it. And I got my gold trophy for it, and it was a great little game. And then there were some other little games, like obviously Streets of Rage is an old school Mega Drive game. And Worms as well is a classic. And then you get some indie games like this one, Braid. And if you haven't played it or if you haven't heard of it, I mean, it's quite low tech really by the standards, and compared to Dead Space 2, I mean, the production standards on Dead Space 2 are just, completely cinematic, whereas Braid is kind of a step backwards. It's obviously developed by, a small design studio, and it's 2D, but it was still revolutionary in that you could go backwards and forwards in time, and it's just a very, very clever game, very resourceful considering the constraints around the technologies, but still, very valid alongside Dead Space 2, which I just wanted to pay particular privilege or homage to because there was a setting on this one, I remember discussing it as well with the World at War guy, a setting called Hardcore Mode. And if you're familiar with it, really, I mean, Dead Space 2 takes 9 hours to complete from start to finish. And if you want to complete it on hardcore, you've got to do it on the hardest setting, but you can only save it twice in those or during those 9 hours. And I just remember having some serious sweaty palms going through this game, obviously spending a good hour or so getting somewhere, and then all of a sudden, some crazy monster would jump out and catch me off my guard, and then I'd be completely devastated, obviously, because I'd spent or invested quite a good bit of time in trying to get to that point. But it really taught me to be, on my guard, literally, for the duration of completing it, and it was truly epic, a sensational experience that I've not forgotten. I mean, it's nearly 15 odd years later. In fact, this is probably less than 15 years ago, but yeah, I distinctly remember it being epic, and the quality of this game. I hope they bring it forward, or a lot of the games, the great games, are being remade and remastered, and Dead Space 2 would definitely be a good candidate for that. But yeah, moving on, Infamous as well. That was sensational. A whole new superhero world where you get to be this guy shooting electricity out of his hands. A whole new superhero world, so not DC or Marvel. And yeah, just a really great storyline with some incredible special powers. I remember that being awesome as well. Not every game I invested heavily in, but Little Big Planet, that was a great one as well. Very innovative. And then some other smaller games like Beyond Good and Evil HD, which I'd never heard of before and I've hardly ever heard of since, but it was just an epic experience. I was really glad I found it. But yeah, a really good game. And also Batman Arkham City was superb. Burnout Paradise, a blast from the past. And then Skyrim as well. I mean, a follow-on from Morrowind was just superb. I loved every minute of Skyrim, although I didn't do the DLC, obviously. And then, yeah, this little gem, Deus Ex Human Revolution. It's just a real one-hit wonder, but a real epic, maybe just 10, 12 hours long story that was just really captures your imagination and helps you to appreciate, how in the future we'll be augmented, which is obviously probably quite true to how things might well go. Eventually we'll be augments, because we'll have a technology built into us somehow. But yeah, that was an incredible story, and I don't think any Deus Ex since was ever quite as good. And then yeah, because I'm a bit of a rugby nut, um, my dad and I really loved playing Rugby World Cup 2011, and yeah, I saw it all the way through and made sure I got the platinum for that. And then a few more games later, yeah, Dark Souls, really, really hard game. I thought I'd completed more of it than that. But again, yeah, that recaptured the essence of Demon Souls. And then, yeah, Mass Effect 3, wow. I absolutely loved, the Mass Effect trilogy, 1, 2, and 3. The whole storyline was just, something else. I think Mass Effect 4 was a little bit of a flop. But yeah, Mass Effect, if you're not familiar with it, yeah, definitely invest. You won't be disappointed. And then moving on, I'll try not to talk too much about most of these. Far Cry is definitely worth a mention. I discovered Far Cry 2 on the savannah in Africa, with my Jeep flying around, and I thought it was awesome. Seeking out those diamonds and then making friends and gearing up and stuff and searching around for things. It's really good actually. Far Cry 2, did it for me. And then yeah, Assassin's Creed Revelations, I completed that all the way through. I must admit my attention span with Assassin's Creed started to wane a little bit at this point because I started to feel like it was a little bit samey. And then moving on, Borderlands was amazing actually. I completed that one on the Xbox, so although it only shows 2% complete here, I did see that all the way through and it was superb. And yeah, Modern Warfare 3, yeah, another platinum for the mantelpiece. Oh, Red Dead Redemption as well. If for anyone who knows, Red Dead, yeah, you'll know that this game, John Marston, for this episode was just superb, very funny, and really a lot of sidelines and subplots to get involved in. And yeah, Infamous 2 and etc. Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine. Yeah, for me, I'm a bit of a Warhammer fan as well, and I really loved this rendition of Space Marines in space fighting the orcs. I thought this game did a really good job of capturing the essence of the Warhammer 40,000 universe, and I'm a bit sad I didn't finish it actually, but yeah, just wanted to flag up that's a good one if you can ever get hold of it. But else, quite a few more. And XCOM, and yeah, because I like war games and I love turn-based strategy games like Civilization and the like. Yeah, you've got XCOM, Enemy Unknown, and if you love that kind of genre that I've just described, then yeah, you won't be disappointed with XCOM. This is a little bit of a homage to the old Amiga 500 and 600, because XCOM was originally released on those platforms on your floppy disks back in the day, and yeah, and then more recently, yeah, XCOM 2 was released, and I really hope we do get to that XCOM 3, Terror of the Deep. Come on, Firaxis, pull the finger out. I mean, there's a lot of us out there really waiting to get hold of your latest rendition. But yeah, it all started with XCOM Enemy Unknown, which was superb. And then Bioshock as well, Under the Sea. I think I did that one on the Xbox. Call of Duty Black Ops. Yeah, I started to get a little bit bored with it by Black Ops 2. But then Far Cry 3 came along. And wow, what an epic session that was. I can't really remember the story now, but I just remember that this was a truly, truly epic game. And the baddie and the main baddie and the character design and development in this, I don't think has ever been recreated since, although I understand Far Cry 4, 5 and 6, etc. Are all very good as well. Most people doff their cap to Far Cry 3 for being pretty much the best. So there's another platinum for the mantelpiece. Moving on, Hitman as well. I mean, yeah, the platinum really takes you to new lengths and makes you discover a game the way the game's designers really intended it to be played. And one thing I should say about Hitman is it was around since the Xbox as well. I mean, it's quite easy to just start a level in Hitman, start a good level in Hitman. When things move south, suddenly it becomes a bit of a shooting fest, and then you're running to escape and you just basically murder everyone, including your target. And that quite often would be the way the mission would end, and you've completed it because you basically, you've assassinated whoever it was. You just didn't do it very discreetly, and you basically killed a lot of other people as well. That's not really the way to play Hitman. If you invest in it properly, you'll realise that you were supposed to pick up the golf club in the garage on the way into the building, and that's how you get your trophies. So yeah, Hitman is another one which is really good game. Not quite so good as far as the film went, but yeah, the game was superb. And moving on again, Metal Gear Solid, absolutely epic from PlayStation, the early PlayStation 1 days. Uncharted again, I didn't quite complete that one, but Uncharted, I loved it on the PS Vita as well. I flirted with the PS Vita. And Dead Space 3, yeah, that one was a bit of a flop, unfortunately. But yeah, Dark Souls 2, again, really, really good and really hard. And again, I only completed a little bit of that. And then, yeah, XCOM and Enemy Within, loved it, every minute of it. And then Assassin's Creed 3, I played through the whole story, but I remember feeling a little bit bored by this point with the whole saga, because I'd played every game, to the death, except this one. I remember rushing this one and thinking, and I think there was quite a gap actually between Assassin's Creed 3 and The Last of Us Remastered. And when I came back and I invested in The Last of Us Remastered, I was not disappointed. It was an absolutely epic experience that more recently got made into a series with Pedro Pascal as well, we know. So a lot of these what started as great games end up becoming, absorbed into popular culture and made into, ongoing and lasting series. So, but yeah, that's a great one. If you haven't invested in that one, highly recommend it. And then a few other small games which are great. Disc Jam, I loved it. Short and sweet. And then yeah, Fallout 4, obviously. More of the same, very similar to Fallout 3. You're a vault dweller, and you're unleashed onto a post-apocalyptic world with all kinds of monsters and nasties and radiation. Loved it. But again, a little bit, it wasn't quite as original by this point. Still, Fallout 3 was the real one. For those who are out there, you'll understand that Fallout 4 recaptures some of that original Fallout 3 magic, but it's still not the original, is it? And then yeah, XCOM 2 though, I mean, this one really took XCOM to a new level, especially when you've got all of the DLC installed. So yeah, well worth investing in XCOM 2. And then yeah, here we go again, another little flurry of platinums. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, I mean, hats off, this has got to be one of the best of all time, and I think it really is the best of all time on many levels, because it's a world that I really knew nothing about, so it was great to discover it all unfold in front of me. The level of detail that went into Geralt of Rivia and his friends, and what he could do in each of the various towns, was just superb. And including the dungeons and the variety of creatures, and even the skill tree, which again, I mean, I love God of War, the Norse version, but God of War, the Norse version, basically has borrowed the skill tree from Witcher 3. And obviously we know Witcher got made into a television series as well. So absolutely epic game though, and I distinctly remember it being very, very hard to complete, because to get the platinum, you've got to complete the whole game from start to finish on the hardest setting. And I just remember that being very, very tough at the outset until you get used to the hardness. So I did a lot of jumping throughout that game, but yeah, it was epic. I mean, by the end, you're very used to it. So yeah, that was The Witcher 3. And then yeah, Metal Gear Solid. I didn't quite invest in Metal Gear Solid as much as I did on the PlayStation 1. And then yeah, a few games that I started and haven't gone back to. But yeah, Marvel Spider-Man. Really glad I did that one. It was superb. And when I was a little kid, Spider-Man was the one for me. And it was just, I really loved jumping off tall buildings, in the way that Spider-Man does. And then yeah, moving on, Persona 5. Another amazing anime adventure, a really good franchise as well. But yeah, Persona 5 is a really good one to get involved in if you're not familiar with Persona. And Shadow of the Colossus as well, and hats off to my brother-in-law for buying me this one for Christmas. It was a PS2 game originally that was remastered for the PS4, and wow, Yeah, it's just a truly amazing game, this one. I'm really glad I invested. And then yeah, God of War, um, winning every award under the sun, and an absolutely perfect game in many ways. Um, really glad I did it, and closely followed by the Ghost of Tsushima, which was a love letter to the Kamakura period, when the Mongols invaded Japan. Again, a truly amazing game that I probably have to go back to and finish that DLC, because I loved every minute of that. Last of Us Part 2 again, I'm sure is amazing, but I haven't got to it yet. And then Star Wars as well. It's worth mentioning that Star Wars was done to death for me because I had it growing up, obviously, as a little kid. I had all of the VHS widescreen digitally remastered versions, and then obviously after 9 films of it, I got a little bit sick of it, I have to say, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. But then Disney bought the franchise as well as Marvel, and thank you Disney for doing that, because then The Mandalorian obviously came along, and The Mandalorian, Pedro Pascal again, really, reignited the whole Star Wars universe for me, and inspired me to complete this one. And I think one thing that's worth mentioning about Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is that actually what's really special about this game, and I know one of my friends said it's a little bit clunky, the way that you control the guy with his lightsaber, but I didn't mind that. I loved it. But the level design, actually, if you're going for the platinum for this one, it really forces you to explore every bit of all the levels, and the level design on this one is truly amazing, actually. I've got to rate this one highly alongside all the other games. This one wins the award for level design for me. I think it's just superb, so that's a good one. And a few more. Ragnarok, obviously, I need to come back for this one as well. Uncharted 4, Red Dead Redemption 2. I'm really glad I went back to this, actually, because I started it in 2018 and then I left it, and then I managed to come back to it recently. But one of the things I have to warn you about is, if you're going for the platinum on this one, expect to be in for the long haul, because there really is a lot of things to collect. This is probably one of the hardest I've had to endure on the grounds of so many things that you have to actually do to get to that platinum. And even still I managed to get most of the collectibles. There are still a lot of collectibles that we're still not got. But yeah, one of the great things about the world of Red Dead Redemption 2 is it was just so intricate, so perfect, and very well designed. And nearly every time you play Red Dead Redemption, you'll discover something you didn't discover before. And the level of detail of the world that you can, invest in was just amazing. So yeah, again, one of the best games of all time, it has to be said, Red Dead Redemption 2. A few more that I'm in the process of doing, like Crash Bandicoot. My son loves this one. He started taking up gaming, so him and I do a little bit of Nintendo and some cartoony games on here. And then I rediscovered my passion for Assassin's Creed by going back to, I only recently discovered that Black Flag was actually one of the best ones. So a really good place to pick up where I left off was to be, indulge in Black Flag. And I have to say, if you haven't done that one, it's well worth the doing. It still holds up all these years later. A really awesome experience, and the closest you're ever going to get to being a pirate, really, in fairness, or certainly the best example of a pirate game. And then and there's a few more yet to come. So watch this space, and thank you for joining me. There's just a summary of some of my trophies to date. I'm level 310. I've got 35 platinums, 133 golds. So the golds are usually what you get for when you complete a game. The silvers, you normally have to do something skillful to get those, and then the bronzes, that can range anything from buying something in the shop to doing something pretty skillful as well. So there you go, there you have it. That's 15 years of avid gaming on and off, because there were dry patches, and then obviously there were a few platinums as well along the way. And I hope you can join me for a few more platinums, and that is the essence of this channel, which is called Trophy Quest. If you can join me on some of these adventures, I'll show you how to get your platinum on. So thanks very much for joining, and enjoy my films. Thank you for coming.